Going to do something a bit different this week because we're not going to be looking at software at all, because last time I was talking about cryptography, and that reminded me of a story my father told me about cryptography when he was young that still has some relevance for us today. And his story was about an English secret society in the 1930s known as the League of Ovaltines. And what this was actually a radio show, the League of Ovaltines, that went out on a Sunday night on Radio Luxembourg aimed at children. And it was sponsored by Ovaltine, who made a malted hot drink for children, still do, I think. And it was just children's entertainment with the idea of selling this drink. And obviously anyone could tune in and listen to it. And so what they also allowed you to do was send off your postal order and become a member of the League of Ovaltines. And what you would get would be a magazine, a badge, and you would get the Ovaltines secret code. And so during the program, although anybody could understand most of it, they'd send out some messages using this secret code, and only members of the League of Ovaltines could understand what that message was. Now, it was a pretty simple code. It was what's known as a simple substitution cipher, which is where you basically take the alphabet and then jumble up all the letters so that each letter in the plain message corresponds to a different letter in the encrypted message. Now, this is a code that a long time ago was used seriously for espionage, but it's been known since really the 16th century how to crack this. Basically, the approach we use is what is known as frequency analysis, which is to say we know that, generally speaking, the most common letter used in English is the letter E. So if you analyse your encoded message and find the most common letter in the code, there's a very good chance that corresponds to the letter E in your original text. And then you can go through the second most frequent, the third most frequent, and although it's a bit of guesswork, you've certainly helped yourself along the way. Other techniques we can use, we can, for example, look out for common groups of three letters, because in English, those are quite likely to relate to the word the or the word and particularly if we've already found the E, then we can start making more sense of it, finding more letters, and eventually work the way through the whole thing. So it really is just a bit of fun for children, this code, by the 1930s, certainly. But because it was so easy to break, and also because of another problem with it, that once you've got the code, you can simply sell it to one of your friends in the schoolyard. And so it was widely known, not just to members of the League of Ovaltines, but to children everywhere. And I'm ashamed to say that my father was one of those who was not a member, but did have the code. I don't know whether he cracked it himself, or whether he bribed a genuine member of the League, but he got hold of the code. And so did lots of children. And so the radio programme decided they were going to change the code. So this was announced. All the members of the club were sent their new copies of the code book. And then came the programme, 5:30 on a Sunday evening, and they transmitted the last message in the old code, followed by the first message in the new code. And my father, who was about 10 or 11 years old at the time, was sitting there by the wireless with his father, and they wrote these things down. And of course, very quickly, they could crack the old code, and it came out as goodbye old code. Now, boys and girls, can you guess what a likely thing that the first message in the new code might have been? Well, yes, they guessed it was hello new code. And once they'd got that, they could start seeing whether that made sense. And the first thing you can do is look at the repeated letters. So you can look at the E's, the L's, the O's, and if they're also repeated in the encrypted text, then it pretty much shows that your guess that this message was hello new code is correct. And that gives you 8 letters from the new code, which is almost a third of the entire alphabet, which means with a bit more work, when new messages come in, you've already got a third of it, and you can just fill in the blanks, and you've got the code cracked very quickly. And so this really wasn't a very smart thing for the League of Ovaltines to do, to send a message in a new code that it was so obvious what that message was going to contain. Because once you've done that, you can crack the code. Once you crack the code, then you can crack all future messages, even the ones that aren't obvious. And although this may be forgivable in the League of Ovaltines, this sort of thing really is a genuine problem in cryptography. Not so much the way codes work nowadays, but certainly back then, to have a piece of text that you can guess is in the encrypted message. This is what is known as a crib. And even with more complicated codes, if you can take a good guess at what is in the message, then you can start making some way into breaking into it. And so good practice in terms of how to write encrypted messages is, of course, to avoid obvious repeated phrases. And that's why no military organisation in the entire Second World War ever put repeated phrases into their encrypted messages. What? Sorry? Really? Heil Hitler? Every message? Well, that explains a lot.
We are the Ovaltinis, little girls and boys. Make your request, we'll not refuse you.